I've seen the number of photographers in the industry grow. I've contributed to that ecosystem with our education vertical where we train people in workshops. But my eyes are on a bigger prize, which is how much better can I get as a photographer? My own personal goals are I want to be legendary in some sense. I want to be remembered for the work I've done. Processing even bad experiences is an exercise that everyone should do. Society reminds you that you're not where you should be, and they're constantly checking in on you, and it could be with good intent for all you know, but it does make you feel like something's missing in your life. Mommy Shot started, and like I said, with a nice hockey stick growth. We were doing extremely well, and when I say we, I mean me, because I was just one person doing everything on my own. Suddenly, after 6 months, my phone stopped ringing. I stopped getting emails. I stopped getting bookings on Facebook. I just did not have any work. I suddenly was very perplexed because we were packed. I mean, I had no time to breathe. I was packed with 25, 30 shoots a month, and suddenly nothing, zilch, zero.
Hello, Sassy Nari. Welcome to Little Fixes podcast. And thank you so much for joining me today. This is your host, Matri. On this podcast, we talk about mental health, relationships, freedom, and personal growth. So, when we see a person living their dream, we feel how charmed their life must be. जो चाहते थे सब मिल गया है तो सब कुछ अच्छा ही होगा. Yes, living your dream is the dream, but that doesn't make everything simple and perfect. और मेरी आज की गेस्ट भी इस बात से अग्री करती हैं. I'm speaking with Amrita Samant of Mommy Shots by Amrita. Amrita is India's leading photographer specializing in maternity and child photography. Amrita has distinguished herself by capturing the essence of motherhood and childhood like no other, and I'm thrilled to have her with me. This conversation brings out the human aspect behind the brand she is. From the struggle to staying relevant to going through mental health challenges, from her biggest mistake to the sassiest thing she did. We'll talk about it all. And before hearing from Amrita, please support Little Fixes by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Hi, Amrita. Welcome to Little Fixes.
Hi, Maitri. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Amrita, from an HR professional for 7 years to a very successful professional photographer now for over 10 years, how is did your job experience help you in any way in your photography business?
It definitely did when I least expected it, because there's always this thought in the back of my head that when I started Mommy Shots and became a professional photographer was, man, if I only could have done this from college, where I could
Hmm.
have studied fine arts, could have studied filmmaking, gone to film school, I would have been better at what I do today. That's a thought that occasionally hit me. But then I've also realized that I've done a double master's in management, and 7 years of corporate experience has given me so much professionalism that I have brought into this business, and I've managed to scale it like any other startup. So I don't think these skills would have really come to fruition if I hadn't had that experience. And somewhere, I think it's also left in our hands to decide how we make the most of a situation.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, make hay when the sun shines, but also all my experiences that I've had so far have come into play in some form or fashion that has made Mommy Shots what it is today. So no regrets there.
Yeah, because see, I'm a social media marketer. I have never studied marketing. Now I'm also a podcaster. I have no experience in any kind of media. No, I think as things come, we keep learning and we keep doing better. So I think what you said, it's just perfect.
I'd
And
love
now, mhm, yes,
I'd
yes.
love to add one more thing about this
Mm.
experience that I have gathered. A lot of people I remember told me that, hey, if you want to get into human resources or HR, you have to be a people person. But
Mm.
you soon learn that no matter what job you take up in life, literally any job or profession, you have to be a people person. And
Yeah.
especially with photography, where communication, being approachable, being empathizing to your subjects in front of you, all of that really came into play, and that's really where I saw how being a people person helped me grow to the photographer I've become today.
Yeah, no experience goes waste. And now, Amrita, you have been doing it for 10 years. So when you started out, I'm sure there weren't many child photographers, baby photographers. I think even 6 years back when my daughter was born, it was still a relatively new industry. Now there are so many, but you are still very popular, very well known. So we want to know your secret. How do you stay relevant?
Thank you. You're being very kind by saying that. I think I'm going to fast. Sorry, I'm going to rewind 10 years ago when I started. My biggest fear was that nobody in the industry was doing, a specialization in child photography. While that became the reason why I got into it, there was also a lot of fear attached to it. Nobody set a precedent. So what if I come in and I don't succeed, or people don't accept the idea itself? That fear soon turned into confidence because the first set of photographs that went out, back in the day when we had Facebook and everybody made a Facebook photography page, I had done the same and I put up the first set of photos that I shot for a friend's baby. It was so well accepted and there was such high demand for it that I surprisingly saw hockey stick growth, right from the get go, which made me feel like maybe I made the right decision by quitting my corporate job and starting this. And it became a beautiful medium of expression for me as an artist. Now, fast forward a few years later, this industry has become so much of a trend that nobody wants to get through a pregnancy without actually doing a maternity shoot, or they do not want to miss the newborn stage itself and get a newborn photography shoot done, which by the way was considered a huge taboo back in the day, Maitri.
Yeah.
It took me at least 2 years of educating clients and convincing them that don't miss this stage. It is so beautiful, and helping them understand how they could keep the images private and keep their baby safe, right? So fast forward to now, we have this huge ecosystem of child photographers. What I love most about it, it has provided opportunities. And I'm saying this because we run an education vertical and we train a lot of women and men in the space of newborn and child photography. This has actually created a huge space for so many housewives to indulge in this as a business, but at their own convenient timings. Their kids go to school, they have a couple of hours in hand, they're actually running a full-fledged business that is bringing them satisfaction, creativity, and making them feel completely full about good use of their time, and also of course enriching other families' lives by creating these memories. So this industry has become huge, but what does that mean for me, and what does that mean for my journey here, since we're talking about that? It's I think I've never looked at having other people around me doing the exact same profession as competition. I've always trained to focus on my own growth and my own targets, and constantly challenging myself. And I don't mean to sound diplomatic here or make this sound like, oh, I'm not threatened or I'm not worried. I've seen the number of photographers in the industry grow. I've contributed to that ecosystem with our education vertical where we train people in workshops. But my eyes are on a bigger prize, which is how much better can I get as a photographer? My own personal goals are, I want to be legendary in some sense. I want to be remembered for the work I've done, which means something that makes an impact in people's lives or to society at whole. And I'm not even halfway to that journey. So if I have to just stay focused on that goal, I really don't have to worry about anything around me, because I just want to keep reinventing and re innovating ways of capturing a child's entire childhood. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and thanks for being honest about that, and not giving any diplomatic answer actually. So when it comes to staying relevant, it is also about marketing and promoting your business very well. And you have three different social media pages, and social media, I think it has given everyone a platform to show up to promote their work, but it also has its cons. So I would like to understand from you what when you started to now, what changes have you seen in terms of promoting your work on social media, and how do you do it? Like, what do you think of it?
Um, okay, I definitely am with you when we talk about how effective it is to actually use social media as your window space where people peep in and see what you have to offer. And you have to put your best foot forward there, of course. You have to put out your best work. And you also have to live up to that best work when they do sign up with you. I think being in the space and promoting yourself, it is a skill that I've learned. I'm not someone who likes to toot their own horn or just constantly talk about myself and my work. I'm actually, I mean, I don't know if you believe it, but I'm actually very bad at that. But I have learned to make those skills work for me and my business, because eventually, I thought I was becoming an artist when I gave up my corporate job and moved into this beautiful space. I'm like, okay, I'm going to create art. But very soon I had that root shock that hit me in a year. And I realized that I'm actually an entrepreneur and I actually have to run a business.
Yes.
And that business has to make sense because there are huge investments in this line of work. So for it to actually make sense overall, you've got to market, you've got to get X amount of clients, you've got to realize what your revenues want to look like and then work towards that. So social media now has become pretty much, a part of my DNA where you show up, you talk to people, you engage, you uh, build trust, you give assurances, you also live up to every little promise you make online. And that has actually forged into beautiful relationships offline as well. And really taken us places in terms of, you know, just knowing so many families whose kids you get to see growing up so close, as well as having them really wish well for you over even after a decade of working with them. And I'm grateful for what social media has provided, but it is a lot of work showing up and doing what it takes to keep this business alive there.
Yeah, and how do you deal with that? Like, does it take a toll on you कि एक particular तरीके से ही show up होना है? And obviously now people are opening up more and more, but still we want to show only the best things on social media. कि अपनी morning बहुत अच्छी है या फिर we are on a holiday, we are doing this, that. तो हम लोग वो ज़्यादा showcase करते हैं. तो what do you think of that aspect?
Um, Such bolu though, I think the biggest thing here is that yes, it definitely takes a toll on anyone because there's only so much that you can show up as well. There is burnout, and you will see me go completely silent on social media for long periods of time, even. I just do the basic thing of showing up and posting work so people know our latest work. But me being personal and alive on social media, it comes in bits because that's really how much energy I have to give it. I mean, generally speaking about this as a concept or a perception, I feel like there's so much pressure we've created in society by showing our best selves every day that, being sad or being upset is not normal anymore. And people are starting to feel that way. In fact, I've seen so many times back in the day. I mean, today I think I'm a lot stronger, but back in the day, I would open social media with a certain mood. Maybe I'd be happy, I'd be calm, I'd be relaxed, and I would scroll through, the perfection in everyone else's lives, which also made me feel like, do I have enough? And then I exit that app feeling really sad and incomplete. And that app and social media can do that to you. It's very important to stay completely aware and conscious of how you feel and how you're reacting, or forget reacting. I would say how you respond to what you see online. And the idea is to constantly just, maybe if you indulge in doom scrolling, have a voyeur's perspective. You look, but don't let that phase you or move you in motion. And I think mastering that art of, you know, not letting anything shake you up so much comes with time, comes with a lot of conscious effort. And today I can do that. I can doom scroll for hours, and I still do sometimes. But I don't let any of it bother me because I'm constantly, I have my own routine and rituals where I'm grateful and I'm journaling and thanking the universe for what I have. And when you do that as an exercise, you start to feel fuller in your heart. Um, I wish more people would do that because social media can have detrimental effects otherwise.
Yes, and talking about detrimental effects, you earlier also said that when you started out, you thought you were becoming an artist, and then you ended up becoming an entrepreneur. मतलब that is the
Right.
reality, obviously. तो बाहर से अगर कोई देखे तो they will think कि हाँ अमृता is living her dream professional life, कि जो उनको चाहिए था वो कर रही हैं. But when I was talking to you last week, you also mentioned that you went through your set of mental health challenges. तो
Yes.
what led you there, even though I understand कि ऐसा होता है, but I know कि a lot of people will be like कि ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है, she is doing what she wants. So we would like to understand from you that.
Um, I'm going to backtrack a couple of years for this because school may they don't teach you some of the most important things in life. They don't teach you about mental health. They don't teach you about your personal finances. They don't teach you about basic things in life like basic courtesies and how to greet people, how to be comfortable with yourself, show up as your authentic self. Simple, important things. Yes, we've learned morals, but beyond that, there's so much more that has to take us through life. One of those things being how to understand your mental health, how to deal with it, how to deal with situations, be it good or bad, and process them. So I think for me, what happened was all of it came together. I think about 4.5 years ago, when I close to when COVID started. Um, I had to start processing a lot of issues from my 20s that I didn't get to deal with, because processing even bad experiences is an exercise that everyone should do. Whereas I just kept shoving things under the carpet, and then it piled up into this big thing that I had to finally address in my 30s. Um, so a lot of it came together at one go. And I think COVID, to some extent, also isolated you. You were left alone with your thoughts. You were left alone with just maybe working or working out or watching TV. There was nothing else to do. You would only be surrounded by the family members you were isolated with. So life caught up with me at that point, and I started to spiral downward. And I'm someone who's always been extremely confident and a huge extrovert, very ambitious, very confident in my own skin. And I'm repeating that because nothing would phase me. And suddenly there was this period where I just couldn't control anything anymore. I would constantly break down and I wouldn't know why. And that's when I realized that, maybe there's something wrong and I need to address it. Um, Thankfully, I did know of words like mental health. I knew of words like therapy. I didn't know what they meant. Nobody understands mental health until you actually go through it, and I don't wish that on anyone. So at that point, I think I, spoke to a friend, and I got a contact of a therapist, and I started my therapy sessions, which really is what helped me get through it. Um, in the last 3 years, I think those were the darkest years, if I have to put it, and not to sound very dramatic or anything, but they were a huge challenge. And it was like fighting a million demons all on your own, and nobody around you can understand or help you. And it was like having this huge massive rock that just weighed you down throughout the day, especially in the mornings, especially at night when you're going to bed. It was a force I couldn't fight. It was a tidal wave. I'm running out of expressions here because that's how bad it was, and it took a lot of effort. I think one thing that really kept me going was this whole never give up attitude that I've always fostered as a child, thanks to my parents. I pushed through and pushed through and pushed through as much as I could. Buckets of tears, buckets of various crazy um, moods, all of it came in the way, and I still had to work through it all, right? You still have to adult and be like, okay, I can't be sad today, I gotta go to work.
Mhm.
But gotta fight through it. So what led me to it is just a lot of things that I did not address as they happened. And also, I think the isolation really got to me. And I think it was the period in my life where I had to address my own mental health and then work towards making it better. It's been a long journey, Maitri, I won't lie, and it's been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Nothing has been this hard, and which is why if I get a chance to talk about it with a friend over a coffee, or with a family member, or with a setting like this, I really do hope that people start to pay attention and notice the symptoms early on and get to it, so they don't have to go through the spiral. That's a never-ending spiral that I went through, because that's
Mhm.
not for the faint-hearted. It takes a lot to fight it.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Amrita, then what did you change in your life and maybe in your routine after you came face to face with your mental health issues and you started processing them?
Um, Honestly, I did not change much except for going to therapy.
Mhm.
Uh, the work I did beyond therapy was thinking about what was discussed at therapy, the realizations that came to life, the realizations that my therapist led me to help me understand why this is happening to me. I gave that a lot of thought, and even going through the motions of thinking about it is hard because it lead to a breakdown. It lead to uncomfortable, an uncomfortable existence, to believe that hey, this has happened to me and I have to live with it. I have to accept that it happened to me, versus being sad about it and crying about it, right? That's a defense mechanism. So addressing that itself is a lot of work. However, in the last 1 year, I think I've had a massive transformation, because I healed to some extent in the last 3 years, and then the previous 3 years, and then the last year, 2023, is where I started to make and implement conscious changes in my day to day activities to help me fight the last bit that I had to fight, which included things like praying a lot more,
Mhm.
finding that faith, that's something that grounds you in one place. For me, it was, just being in front of my puja, my mandir, and just sort of saying a prayer, lighting an incense stick. For me, that gave me strength. The other thing was journaling. I never thought I would be someone who'd journal. Like, I surprised myself today. I'm like, I'm that same person. I started to also detach from wrong energies around me, which again, 2 years back, that would be the weirdest thing I would have said. But today I believe so strongly in it. It's important that the people who surround you, who you meet on a day to day basis, you pretty much are the average of those 5 or 6 people you're meeting. So it's important to surround yourself with the right energy, the right people, people who have good intentions for you, and you wish well for them equally. And I think also being grateful. While meditating, I'm constantly thinking about how much I actually am blessed with, versus thinking about how much is missing in my life and how incomplete I feel. I think one of the large, and this is me being my vulnerable best when I say that one of the big things that I felt really incomplete about was not being married, being single at this age in India, not having children, not
Mm.
having a partner. And India is not the ideal country to be single in, because they every part of the way society reminds you that
Yeah.
you're not where you should be, and they're constantly checking in on you, and it could be with good intent for all you know, but it does make you feel like something's missing in your life. And
Yes.
to find that complete circle within yourself, to find that love within yourself, to find that you are complete as you are, and a man is incidental, a family, everything else is just a part of your life, not the entire thing. That took a lot of time for me to adjust and accommodate and appreciate and embrace as an idea. So
Mhm.
yeah, all of these little activities, or these little routine, this routine that I brought in has helped me progress so much further. And to be honest, for anyone out there who's listening to this, when you're actually doing the act of journaling, when you're praying, when you're meditating, at that point it just feels like, what am I doing? How is this going to change anything? Because you're keen to see overnight changes, but it's only a period of time that'll show you that progress.
Yes. And one thing which I have noticed now, कि people will always make you feel incomplete. Always. I got married at 24. फिर सब पीछे पड़ गए कि बेबी कब करोगे 30 years की एज पे आई डिसाइडेड कि आई वांट टू हैव अ बेबी नाउ. आई हैड अ बेबी. अब बिकॉज शी इज़ अ गर्ल, मे बी बॉय भी होता तब भी लोग अब दूसरा कब करोगे. तो आई थिंक दे विल ऑलवेज से, अभी भी मुझसे कहते हैं तुम्हारी फैमिली अभी इनकम्प्लीट है. अभी इफ यू हैव वन मोर किड और मोस्ट लाइकली अ बॉय, देन योर फैमिली विल बी कंप्लीट. तो आप हमेशा इनकम्प्लीट ही रहने वाले हो. कुछ भी कर लो आप.
That is true. Paka, I think people are always constantly trying to fulfill their own wishes through someone else.
Yeah. And Amrita, what do you do for fun? Because you are living your hobby, as we call it, photography. कि ये
Yeah.
hobby होती है. तो like my husband loves to do photography as a hobby. So now, what a photographer does for fun.
Okay, I have a lot of interests. I think after starting Mommy Shots, I put everything in the back seat, and I think that also led to bad mental health, because there was no balance of work life and personal life, and I brought all of that back in the last 1 year. So I'm really excited to talk about it. So I
Mm.
picked up. I love picking up new skills. So one of the skills that I have, a sport rather, that I've really indulged in is boxing. I got a trainer to come in and teach me, and I picked it up to a point where now I take a boxing class whenever I can. And the little progress you make, because it's a very intense physical activity, right? So the little incremental progress you make is a
Mm.
big win for me, and that keeps me going each time. So boxing is one of those things. Dance has been a big part of my life growing up. I used to dance professionally at one point, so I brought dance back into my life. So this all of these things really fill my soul and helps me go back to work a lot more fresh and with a lot more energy. And I think it also helps me see the world differently. Other things would be travel, and I love watching films. Like, I can watch endless number of films, um, to the extent that I'm obsessed. I watch a movie pretty much every night before I go to bed. I
Mhm.
can. So I would.
Ah, okay. And what's your favorite movie? Maybe one, two.
I have so many favorites, but if I have to pick one, I would say La La Land. I think it's a movie that has
Uh-huh.
great music and also a storyline that relates to any artist. So
Hmm.
that would be my go-to. But I mean, there are quite a few to be honest, and it would take an hour to finish those. Go through get to that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, Amrita. And now, because we are mixing personal and professional, so we'd like to know, okay, who inspires you? Like, is there a person, or maybe what inspires you?
I think right now when I think about inspiration, and it always boils down back to work for me, and I think for me it's kids themselves. I've given this question a lot of thought in the last couple of years. um, while yes, you can get inspired from pretty much anything around you, and that does happen. When I travel, I see some color schemes put together in some flea market. I'll just take a picture and think of how I can use those colors because it looks so good to the naked eye, that I'll find ways to use it in a shoot. Or I will try and find inspiration through films. This is why I watch films, just to see beautiful frames and see how I could create similar frames, because everyone might be creative, but two people can use the same inspiration in different ways and execute it, right? So I'm constantly drawing inspiration from things around me, but if it has to be a person, I would say it's definitely with it's from kids between the age groups of say 6 months to maybe 8-10 years, right? They are more interactive, expressive, and you see them go through life without a care in the world, because they have someone protecting them and taking care of them. Now, what that teaches me, if you have to transpose the lessons from that, is that they are fearless, because they don't know crawling off a table will, land them a fall, or they're, transparent, filter free, and they say exactly what's on their mind. They love the simple concept of play, which we've forgotten as adults, and they love unconditionally. They don't care if it's a male photographer or a female photographer or anything. They don't care, about what is who the person is and what they come with. They just really care about that person and how much that person can play with them and make them happy. Right? So
Yeah.
these little things, I feel like, really change you as a person, and that influences your outlook as a photographer.
Yes. And Amrita, was there a moment in your life, in your professional life, when you felt ki, yes, I have made it as a professional photographer? Now this is what I have been looking for, and now I have made it.
On my three, no, if I have to be honest, wo, that hasn't happened, and I hope it doesn't happen, because that would also mean
Yeah.
I start to get complacent. अगर
Hmm.
बहुत comfortable हो गए, तो you just start to get lazy about your craft. There have been milestones,
Hmm.
which me as a personality, I don't really celebrate milestones, because I'm always like, agla goal kya hai? Like, what is the next thing? What is the next big thing I can do? Or what is the one next most challenging thing I can do? But I've started to change that in the last 2 years, where I've stopped and smelt the flowers and said, okay, you've actually come a good way. Pat yourself on the back, appreciate it. Um, but it's just the small milestones about what people say, how mothers feel about your work, the compliments you get for that, the difference it's making to children. Now, since we've been there for 10 years, I've had 9-year-old kids who shot with me when they were one come back
Hmm.
and say, auntie, I love those pictures, they're so special, thank you. Right? It's these little moments that make you feel like, wow, okay, you're making a difference to the world in a small way.
Hmm.
But I don't think I've ever let things like success or you know I've never let that get to my head, and I hope it doesn't ever get to my head.
Nahin, I find you really down to earth and really humble. So I see that. And Amrita, I would now tell. We talked about success. Now I'd also like to understand. I'd like to know from you a mistake, maybe one big mistake which you did in your career, and how it changed your life. What you learned from it.
Um, I really don't want to be diplomatic and say, there are no such things called mistakes and everything's an experience and you learn from it.
Mhm.
That sounds like the right thing to say here. Um, I and I do believe in that, by the way. I do
Yeah.
believe that everything is just an experience and you learn from it. But if I have to point out something I could undo, there was this time when I quit my corporate job and I started Mommy Shots, and I remember telling my mentor and my ex boss, you know. मैं ट्राई करने वाली हूँ, अगर it fails, I'm gonna come right back and you're gonna give me a job, right? And they're like, हाँ, हाँ,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And Mommy Shot started, and like I said, with a nice hockey stick growth. We were doing extremely well. And when I say we, I mean me, because I was just one person doing everything on my own. Um, Suddenly, after 6 months, my phone stopped ringing. I stopped getting emails. I stopped getting bookings on Facebook. I just did not have any work. I suddenly was very perplexed because we were packed. I mean, I had no time to breathe. I was packed with 25, 30 shoots a month, and suddenly nothing, zilch, zero. I started to worry a little bit. I started to reach out to my ex boss and my old colleagues, and I said, hey, I might have to come back because I don't know where this is going. And I started interviewing with companies. While I was interviewing with companies, I was also shooting. I was calling friends and saying, hey, let me document your children. Let me try something different that I want to try versus what a client asks from me.
Mhm.
And I started putting up that work while doing the interviews. The interview process was about 3 months, right? Because these were really big companies we were interviewing with. And the work that I created during that period turned out to pique a lot of interest. And I started to get calls. I got two offers in hand. At the same time, my phone started ringing. And I was so confused, but because these are such important crossroads in your life. I was
Yeah.
doing extremely well in my previous job. I quit at the pinnacle and started this. Now I was going back to my corporate job because that seemed like the sensible thing to do, a reliable thing to do. And but my phone wouldn't stop ringing off the hook again after a good 2.5 month break. I picked up those calls and I was really confused. I'm like, should I commit to a shoot date or should I just get to work? I decided to go to work. I picked up one offer. I joined this really big professional networking company. And I'm really embarrassed to share the story, but I think it's a bit of a mistake, and I could have protected myself from it. Is that I joined the company and I quit in 5 days.
Okay.
Yes, it's extremely embarrassing, especially when you're in HR and you know how much effort goes into recruiting a person and onboarding them.
Mm.
And to be the person who actually quits in those 5 days after joining was extremely embarrassing for me. I had to also, I mean, it led to burning some bridges with my mentor. It led to a lot of shame. But when I decided to quit after 5 days, and I, I told myself, I made a promise, no matter how much shit hits the fan, no matter what happens with Mommy Shots, I'm not going to quit Mommy Shots and go back to the corporate world because this decision is final. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work somehow. And thankfully, touch wood, we've never had to go back. We've become a bigger company and we're finding our ways to survive. But that I think has been an error on my part. I could have been smart about it. But I think I operated on fear.
Yeah. Yes. That
So
happens, I think, to the best of us.
yeah, so I think that's what I would list as my mistake. Yeah.
Okay, but you now feel, you also now feel कि सही किया, अगर नहीं छोड़ा होता तो आई थिंक जिस जिस जगह आप अभी आप हो वहां आप नहीं होते.
हाँ, वो phrases होते हैं ना, follow your heart. That was
हाँ.
literally what guided me here. But then, of course, I applied marketing, business sense, everything else to it, improve my craft, and that's how I survived all these years. So it's not just about following your heart; it's about all the other work that comes with it.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be practical while following your heart. And Amrita, you have been working for so many years now. You have heard from a lot of people. So, uh, can you tell us the best advice you got?
I saw this question and I was really preparing for it. Um, so if there's one thing I try and do is to remember good advice and then implement it as and when I can.
Hmm.
But I have to pick one. The best advice I've gotten is, gosh, can I park this question? Can I just respond to this part later? I
Mm-hmm.
I
That
apologize.
we can do.
Revisit the question and you edit it in.
Definitely,
Tough
definitely.
one and a very good question, by the way.
Okay. And Amrita, now knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would do differently? We just talked about कि हाँ पास्ट में नहीं इतना सोचने का, क्योंकि अपने हम जैसे जैसे आता है हम चीज़ें करते चले जाते हैं. You also talked about your biggest mistake, but at least in terms of your work now, is there anything that you would have done differently when you were first starting your photography thing?
There's so much I've learned in the last 10 years that I would go back and tell my younger self to watch out for, to be smarter, to, you know, be warned about, hurdles that come your way, because entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey. And
Hmm.
there are ups and downs throughout this journey, right? There's literally, I mean, if you reach a plateau, you should be worried where everything is calm. That's worrisome. But ups and downs are normal. How you respond to it really matters, because reacting is only temporary. So I would go back and tell myself about the response. But I think overall, what I would tell myself is to really stick with my base, which is to believe in myself no matter what situation arises. Because I have gotten through some of the hardest hurdles and times in the last 10 years. And the one thing that got me through is really having faith in myself that I can get through it. So, this is the message I would give my younger self, just so I could sail through it with a lot more confidence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then how do you stay motivated when things get hard? You just said that having faith in yourself. Is there anything else?
Um, Maitri, to be honest, I've come to this point, and now this might sound preachy, okay, but I've come to this point where I've realized motivation is actually temporary. You
Yeah.
things can motivate you to do more. Like a beautiful location motivates me as a photographer. Um, Subjects that are children that are who are just running wild and free really motivate me to create some beautiful art with them, because I want kids to be kids in my shoot. It's the small things that really motivate me, but I realize motivation is actually temporary. It's just the discipline of showing up. And again, this is something I wish I knew early on, where if you just make a promise to yourself and show up every day, uh, whether you're documenting a building next door, or you're documenting a child, or you're documenting a pet, anything at all, if you're picking up on your skill and showing up every day for yourself, there's literally no way you can fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say the focus would be more disciplined. Motivation will come and go, and then you've got to deal with those waves.
या दैट्स व्हाट आई रेड समवेयर कि जो हमारी टेम्पररी फीलिंग्स होती हैं उनको अपने बिग गोल्स के बीच में नहीं आने देना चाहिए. एंड अमृता, नाउ टेल अस द मोस्ट सरप्राइजिंग थिंग यू डिस्कवर्ड अबाउट बीइंग एन एंटरप्रेन्योर.
Realizing how resilient I am, and
वाओ.
how um, I've just been fluid, where I adapted to situations and all kinds of situations. You're pushed into a corner, you have literally nothing, no resources, and you're still getting work done, or you're pushed to this space of luxury where you have everything and still sometimes you can't get work done. You're just constantly oscillating between these extreme situations, and you start to realize that you're the resilient one that's making it work no matter what the situation around you. And that, I didn't think I was this resilient, honestly, when I started out. It's a skill I'm now proud of. I take pride.
Resilience is actually my word of 2024. So I'm also learning to be more resilient. So, and Amrita, what have you enjoyed the most about starting your own company?
I think these are really tough questions, Maitri. और सोचना पड़ेगा, तो I have to really put my mind to it. I think what I really love about starting my own company is this. While I may not be married and have a child, this is literally my baby. And you know how we all as moms get protective about our child. I
Hmm.
have been super protective about nurturing it, feeding it, growing it, clothing it, which is basically my marketing and PR, and taking care of it in every way possible through these 10 years. But I think the most enjoyable part has really been exploring the art by itself. While I have to wear these multiple hats of wanting to be an artist, and then also having to show up as a founder, as a as a creative director, or as someone who manages a team. I never want to let go of the connection with the art itself. Because the day that happens, that's when I feel like I'll never provide value to anyone who actually comes to us for documenting their lives. And we
Hmm.
have an important job. We're taking a screenshot of your lives and reminding you about it, say 20 years from now. So for me, just nurturing the art itself, and fostering my skill here to be better each day, and even for my team as well. I think that is the most enjoyable part of the entire journey of starting my own company.
Yeah, and as you said, the questions might be tough, but you are nailing the answers.
I'm trying.
Yeah, and now, Amta, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs in my listening community, I myself am an entrepreneur. So, what, according to you, are the essentials to become a successful entrepreneur?
I would put, if I have to put three things down, um, I would definitely say, wow, these are tough. Okay, I would definitely put down resilience on it because it's
Mm,
important to um, adapt to different situations. Two, always be open. And when I say be open, it's a mindset where you're open to literally any way of getting that job done or
mm,
open to any kind of changes because changes are every single day. So being open to change, being open to embracing new ways of, doing things and being open enough to adapt to the changing ecosystem as well. Today, I could be doing photography. Tomorrow, I'll just be doing videos if photography gets stale. That
mm,
ad- um, you know that openness to change is really important. And the third would be to never lose focus on your overall objective, which is we all run a business to add value. Yes, it's a business and you have to make money and you've got to think about your P&L statements, but if you forget why you're in there pushing every single day, and if you're not adding value or changing lives in some way, your overall purpose as an entrepreneur is kind of lost.
mm.
I would
Yeah.
put these three on top.
Yeah. So, see, you started your career 17, 18 years back. So, you might have had a different definition of success back then, and now it must be different for you. So, please tell us how it changed and what is it now?
um, when you're younger, a lot of this stuff is actually glamorized, right? Being a photographer was a very glam profession to get into. It was also about, how popular you are, being in the press, being appreciated, or working with very important people. All of that was associated to success. Traveling the world was considered success with your profession. But these were also different times when, you and I were being raised. And over a period of time, as you get deeper into your profession and into your skill, you start to realize there are so many elements and so many factors that come into play when you are growing as a person, as an individual, and growing your company with the objectives you have in mind. So for me, my
Mhm,
goals are very clear. Be the best at what I do. There's no space for mediocrity. And maybe this is something I picked up in school because our school was always focused on perfection, which may not be the correct messaging, by the way, for a child.
mhm,
However, some parts of it stayed with me, and I'm always striving towards perfection for that matter. And I think success comes in the little joys of my everyday. When I get
mhm,
that message from a mom saying, "Oh my God, Amrita, your pictures made me cry," or "I love them so much, I can't wait for my child to grow up and see these pictures." That for me is success. Or when a brand out there that I work with says, "Amrita, you nailed the brief. I've got exactly the kind of content I want to promote my brand, and it's making a difference on Instagram."
mhm,
That is success to me. It's the small little joys from my everyday job that bring me success versus the optics externally of who Amrita is and how far, how big Mommy Shots has grown. All of that is secondary or tertiary or not even considered in that sense. For me, success today also is so much to do with my team. I honestly think that we've come this far only because of my team, and they've literally been my pillars of support and foundation that we built out. And having a good team is what will determine your future milestones or progress, right? I'm not using the word success very carefully here because success is temporary and success is, in the smaller things, and it's never something that's a finish line.
mhm.
Yeah, it's these little things that help me appreciate the success I've had.
Yes, and Amrita, you have given us so many important things to think about in the last 40 minutes or so. Now, please also tell us what, according to you, is one thing that every woman needs to keep in her mind always.
Okay, ready for the drum roll? um, we've always been told as women to be super women, super moms, super or super strong or strong or brave women. Like I constantly see this. I've received that compliment so many times, and it may be well intended compliments of, oh, Amrita, you're so strong. You got through that really hard time in your life. Or Amrita, you were so brave about that. Or, whatever it is. But
Mhm.
I realized this year that honestly, we're just being fooled. We're being scammed, by the way. Not everybody has to be strong. You don't have to be brave. You're forced to stand up to things, and you're forced to be brave. You're forced to hold your shit together. Can I say shit? You're forced to hold your stuff together and, like, show up every day. And in the process, you get these compliments of being super strong and you're so amazing at what you do. No, I feel like we're setting the wrong bar for women, especially around Women's Day, Mother's Day. They show these illustrations of a woman having 10 hands and multitasking. Gosh, no, that's such a wrong idea to put out there. Then we have very different standards for every woman to live up to, and it's not real. It's impossible. That'll lead to instant burnout. And
Mhm.
that is just, again, like I was saying, detrimental in the overall run. You don't see men with the same illustrations. You don't see men being called super strong, super brave, so amazing. We don't see that. How is it that they're excused and we are, like, put on this thing? So, since you spoke about a gender based question, I would say
Mhm.
that the most important thing for a woman to remember and embrace is to be their authentic self in their truest form. Showing up as their authentic self is the most important thing. Everything else is secondary, because if your character comes through with good intention, everything else can be learned, everything else can be picked up. Those just become, byproducts eventually. But today, being authentic, being kind is so rare that that's what I would ask for from every woman.
Definitely, definitely. And now we just talked about being kind, but now tell us the sassiest thing, the maybe the boldest thing you have ever done.
um okay, in when okay, for me, this was the boldest thing for me because it took a lot of courage to be able to do it. For someone else, it may be a piece of cake and a really easy thing to do. uh, but I took stock of it because I had to take years to build up that courage to do it, which is now when you operate on fear and you're constantly saying yes to everything. That courage to say no, saying
Mhm.
no to clients you don't want to work with, saying no to tasks or commercial gigs you don't want to take up, saying no itself, I
Mm.
think has been one of the boldest things I've learned.
Mm.
I've always been a yes man. Again, I think this is the way I've been raised, the school I went to, what they taught us to be, accommodative, to be caring, to help everyone. You possibly can't help everyone. You can't say
Mm.
yes to everything. And I've been doing that. And then it led to just the mental health breakdown that I spoke about some time ago. And I think the big lesson I've learned in life is that it's okay to say no, and you have to take care of yourself, and it's not selfish to say no, and it may be the right decision at that point. So I think the boldest and the sassiest thing, I mean, I wish I had a better story for you, but learning to say
I know
no.
this is bold actually. We are just learning to say no.
Yes. So I think that's the sassiest or the boldest thing. And there's so much relief when you actually say no, and you finish that call. You may be trembling, but you're like, okay, I'm glad I said no. Right. And that's
Ah,
my truest feelings I'm sharing here.
ah. Nee, I agree with that. And Amta, do you want to answer the question about the best advice? If you want, Netu, we can strike it out if you want.
No, no, no. I will answer that question. It's I have so much. Is I'm wondering what is it that okay okay, I'll choose something. Yeah, I have something in mind. I think the best advice I've received is actually from my mentor from my days in human resources. And it was a very simple thing she pointed out because I was constantly multitasking, and I used to be good at multitasking as well. Um, and I was trying to hustle between my actual corporate job as well as all my creative interests on the side because that's where I really wanted to be.
Mm.
And she pointed out one thing and told me, she said, you cannot chase two rabbits at once because you
Mm.
won't get even one in hand. And that applies to so many situations in your life. So
Yeah.
metaphorically, it just made so much sense. It was, one of those Gyani moments where you just feel like, okay, those are words of wisdom for me. And I think about that line a lot whenever I have to start making choices, when I feel like I'm doing too much or I'm trying to get too much done in one given day.
Hmm.
Uh, all my decision making is simplified with that one line. So I feel like that is possibly the best advice I've gotten.
Okay, and as my life coach Sanjeet Ray also says, he says, play just one ball at a time. It's very difficult for us to do it, especially I think for women. I would say it again, maybe I'm biased, but I have not seen my husband doing different tasks at the same time. He said मुझसे नहीं हो पाता है, but we are like नहीं करना है किसी भी तरीके से, we have to do it. तो I think ये women पे ज्यादा आता है.
And I think we're somewhere wired also to do things so naturally, like we because we have to get it done, right? We've taught ourselves to multitask. Let's put it that way. We may not be born multitaskers. We found our way around it because it has to get done. But I love what Sanjay told you. That's a beautiful line. That's something I want to keep in mind. Uh, because it's a simple things, right? When you're sitting and playing with your child, your mind should be there 100%. When you're sitting down for work, your mind has to be there 100%. Here, it's just it's a big grand mess in our heads. If somebody had to open out our brains and look at it, I think we all would be really embarrassed.
Yes. So, Amrita, it was really lovely speaking with you, and I got a lot of points to think about, and I'm sure my listeners also got a lot of things to think about. Now, before I let you go, please let us know how can people connect with you.
Absolutely. It was lovely being here. And if anybody wants to connect with us, there are just so many social media platforms that we're present on. There's literally no way someone cannot connect with us.
Hmm.
Be it email, calls, our Instagram page, which is at Mommy Shots by Amrita, our website, mommyshotsbyamrita.com, and YouTube as well. So we're all over the place. And we'd always love to be connected.
Mhm. Okay, that is great. So, Amrita, thank you so much for being honest about sharing your life and your experiences with us, and thank you for your time to Little Fixes.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.